After 13 long months, we had USA-Mexico in the all-state Continental Clásico. I mean, that's good use of the partners, right? The sponsorships. All-state Continental Clásico. It was there in Glendale, Arizona. We say Glendale, Arizona, but you know, where the heck is Glendale? Is it Phoenix? Is it Mesa? Is it Scottsdale? It's Arizona. It's an interesting place, Arizona. But that really is a spectacular venue. Hosted a recent Super Bowl. It's big. It looked good on TV where I watched it. I didn't make it out there. I'm saving myself for Vegas. I'm saving myself for Vegas in the Nations League. But it was good to see the USA and Mexico colors on my TV screen when we saw it so frequently in 2021 and up till the middle of 2022. We had the World Cup and it was just quiet. Then I'll pick up and we'll get into what lies ahead, including some big news that was reported on the broadcast. By the way, it's on like 8 channels. It's like HBO Max, it's Turner, it's on NBC Peacock, it's on Telemundo. It's on a lot of channels. Or Univision, is it? It's on a lot of channels. So you have your viewing options for the U.S. men's national team. As we all knew, this was a roster made up almost exclusively of MLS players. By design, we had the Nations League players, predominantly from Europe. We had Serginho Dest, who played a role in here, as AC Milan let him out to join up with his U.S. players, his U.S. teammates. And Liga MX played with predominantly a Liga MX team. You know, Julian Araujo was there, even though he's at Barcelona, but you get the idea. It wasn't exclusively Liga MX versus MLS, but it was pretty close. That's a rivalry we're going to see a lot for the remainder here of 2023. But here today on the Soccer OG, check out the Soccer OG podcast where all podcasts are available. I'll be talking about this game with Jeff Carlisle of ESPN. Knows his stuff. We'll also talk about who could be the future number 9. Jesus Ferreira scoring a goal. Don't scream at me. I'm not saying it's him. Who of these players could possibly make it? And I'll talk about that a little bit here to a senior A team for the U.S. men's national team. I think you're looking at a legit number. It's not 0 and it's not 1 or 2. It's more than that. Also talk a little bit about how Leeds United are going to get relegated and Chelsea are out of the Champions League, which all applies into our big U.S. soccer pod. Like and subscribe us here. Go ahead and do it right now. Like. We really appreciate it. It gets the word out. And, well, let's get into it. Let's show you the starting 11. Mexico, by the way, I won't show you the starting 11, but they had a very similar group to the World Cup. I think it was 5 players that started on Wednesday were with that Mexico team in the group stages. Remember, they didn't make it to the round of 16. This is what the U.S. men's national team looked like. In that starting 11, you had 8 players that were on the World Cup roster. So I know people think differently about the quality of these players, and most of these guys were not featured players at the World Cup. They were more fringe or back end of the roster. But yeah, Sean Johnson was a backup goalkeeper. Back 4, Serginho Dest, Long and Zimmerman, DeAndre Yedlin at right back. Dest obviously can play both fullback spots. Started there at left back. It was a 4-2-3-1. Mexico played with 5 defenders, or like wing backs, so we could call it a 5-3-2-1. Acosta and James Sands, who started great and then kind of fizzled. That was the engine room. And then 3 with Jordan Morris, Jesus Ferreira playing that number 10, which a lot of people wanted to see him play. Cade Cowell, without his mustache. And Brandon Vasquez, who was at the top. So that was your starting 11. You'd see it. I thought it was a very strong 11. And naturally, you get in arguments with people on Twitter, and they're like, well, no, we got to get people a look. I go, who do you want to get a look in there? Who? Caleb Wiley and Aiden Morris are the 2 young players. If you think these young players are going to waltz into USA Mexico and perform, you have not watched this sport ever. And this isn't a place to introduce them. How it works, I'm sorry, I'm going to bring it down a notch. I'm not yelling. How it works is when you're in the national team system and you've been there for a couple of years, as these players are, your reward is to get called up. You get money to get called up. You get prestige. You get to stay in the system. And that was the deal. It wasn't, this isn't under 20s. Mexico didn't play with under 20s. They had a couple guys over 30 in that starting 11. If they were playing Germany or they were playing Argentina, it wouldn't be their under 20s. It wouldn't be a game to bring out the youngsters. This would be a game. I can't really answer that definitively because it's just USA-Mexico, but if it was Canada, it would be the same thing. This is a chance to play your rivals, and you play what you think is your best team. Now, they didn't play that great, obviously, but I don't think incorporating Aiden Morris or Caleb Wiley, Alan Sonora came in, just not a good fit. Just not a good fit. I know I said that about Daryl Dike a while ago. And obviously, Daryl Dike now injured. We're not going to see him for a while, but I'm not going to talk too much about Alan Sonora. But this was the roster. The roster was MLS veteran players. This was this game. It was a one-off. You know, this game means nothing except the fact it's USA-Mexico. And if you think that we're going to say, okay, let's play it and lose 2-0, and that's going to be okay, it's not, because we will remember this game, even though it's a friendly. Because we're American or we're Mexican, it's going to be in our memory banks. We are going to remember it. So it is important. It is an important fixture. So this was the squad that was expected to give you the best chance to win. I was glad we saw some of those kids come in. I would have liked to see maybe another young player. I would have liked to see Caleb Wiley come in a lot sooner than he did. Maybe Aiden Morris. But the other guys that we saw were Paxton Pomykal. He's a young player. And then Matt Miazga coming in as well at a juncture here for the United States. Who am I missing? I think that was it. Wiley, yeah. I know I'm missing one player. Anyway, we'll continue on with this discussion. The game, very difficult to watch. It was so, what's a good word? Conservative. Both teams were tough to crack. The U.S. would sit there and try and hope for Mexico to make a mistake. There was no data. There was like a one ball into the attacking third. Paul Carr said USA had one touch in the attacking penalty area, and he had a graph chart. It looked kind of like an image of what the reproductive organs and that one sperm that gets through. I don't know. That's what it looked like, But it wasn't great. First half was brutal. Second half for the U.S. was pretty bad too. I mean, they came out, they just they let Mexico dictate it a bit more. Mexico had, and I'm going to get to the final result. Mexico had these great opportunities. More certainly in the second half. I mean, there were some good chances. We'll get to that, but we'll finish what's happened in the first half, which was 45 minutes scoreless. Bright spots early on. James Sands distributed some balls. I think high on the list for the U.S. Who will be the backup for Tyler Adams? Or really, who's going to start for Tyler Adams? Because he's injured right now. But Tyler Adams is such an important player. But one of the things you want to see is a midfielder who can do it all, but more importantly, distribute these passes. And James Sands did that a little bit. Fizzled out like so many players. You can tell you who was disappointing here, but there wasn't, Sean Johnson in goal. Really difficult with distribution. Good shot stopper. He made one good save there late to keep the U.S. in touch. But when they put him under pressure, you're just, very uncomfortable watching it. But who do you single out? I know everyone wants to single out somebody. And no one wants to give people credit when there's due. Everyone has their favorites. And everyone has their objects of dissatisfaction. But who played well? Who? People are average to poor. This is the U.S. team. Remember, you got to remember, this is such a weird game. And it won't be out of our memory banks because it's USA-Mexico, but we'll move forward and we'll get to the next one. But this was, these teams played with their clubs in MLS. They came in. Anthony Hudson even said it was a walkthrough at practice. So Monday, Tuesday. Monday, they're just arriving, really. Wednesday, they play. Thursday, they'll get back to their club slowly. I'm sure they'll have a day off. Friday, they'll have a light practice, and we'll see what they do on the weekend when they get back to their MLS clubs, the majority of this squad. So it's really an untenable situation. Although give credit to Mexico, they were performing a little better. A lot of these guys didn't play together. You've got to set the bar very low. And it was very low in this game. One thing we did here, I wanted to touch on, as it applies to USA and Mexico and the continuing relationships that are going to be made between the two countries a joint bid for the 2027 Women's World Cup. Cindy Parlow-Cohen was on the broadcast and mentioned it. This would be a year after the U.S. hosts the Men's World Cup with Mexico and Canada. This is massive news, and it would seem like the best bet. It's been a pretty long time since the U.S. hosted one on their own merits, not had to fill in on in an emergency capacity. So it seems like the time. And so I get a little nervous because we're going to have so much fun with the 2026 World Cup. You almost want to wait a few years before you have another World Cup. Remember Brazil did that with the Olympics and the World Cup. You just want to wait a little bit. But then again, strike while the iron's hot. It makes sense. You'll have everything up and running in this country, so it'll be a seamless production for when the women roll around. And that World Cup's going to be huge because the 2023 World Cup is going to be the biggest edition of that. Women's soccer is the biggest growth sport, as I've said in the past, and is going to continue to move in that. So invest your time, your money in women's soccer because you'll make it all back down the road. You will be very satisfied. So no shots on target, I don't think, for either team at the end of the first half. No changes in the second half. And the big moment, look, just to talk about the players, Serginho Dest was involved in the American goal, but he was poor. He looks so low on confidence, except for that one play. He looks low on confidence. He's just a great player. I mentioned Son Johnson. Obviously, guys like maybe DeAndre Yedlin and Aaron Long are coming to the end of their time with the national team. I would like to tell them differently, but that's the reality. I think in the case of those players, there's going to be a lot of competition in those defensive spots, fullback and center back. But they deserve it here because they're amongst the best players from this player pool for this April group. Now the Mexico goal. Aaron Long was vilified immediately. Aaron Long played pretty well. Aaron Long didn't have any options, but he was pretty clean. The mistake was made by Kellen Acosta. That's a pass that you don't make. Aaron Long in the back has to do something smarter. I'm not sure what. I don't know if he can bang it out because it would have hit Uriel Antuna. Or maybe just do a slide tackle, or maybe just eat a yellow card. But there's a lot of cataloging going through your head. Should have done better. But the fault lied in the pass. He gets beat, fodder for everyone who continues to rip Aaron Long. I've defended Aaron Long. I'm not going to tell you he's going to be part of the U.S. system. I watch him at LAFC. I got to tell you, I've been really impressed with him, seeing him up close. He's healthy, but he's way down the pecking order of the center backs. You're not going to see him play important games. But I thought he, with that one big mistake, which he was part of, he was okay. He was the lesser of the evils, if you'd want to say, when you looked at the performance of all these guys. U.S. trying to get things going. Alan Sonora, Aiden Morris came in for Kate Cowell. Brandon Vasquez, I was hoping to see him play and have a big role. He was absolutely invisible. Not really his fault. The system didn't work. This was a very safe tactical move by Anthony Hudson. He didn't have much to say at the half. Felt like he was going through the motions. I was not washed over by confidence that I may have been with Anthony Hudson in prior moments in his tenure. I don't think he wants this job. I think he's trying to position himself for an MLS job, which he seems like a good candidate for. So I just don't think this is it. But he's done a nice job in some roles with the naturalization of the dual nationals. This was not a finer moment from the sideline by any means. So Mexico in front, getting a lot of chances. Chavez almost had a free kick goal. Charlie Rodriguez hit the crossbar, and it was off that crossbar that the U.S. saw the light. Incredible counterattack. Serginho Dest covered 50 yards to Sonora. Smart ball out wide to Jordan Mars. Put in the cross, tapped in by Jesus Ferreira. 1-1. And after all that, the United States, on a day that everyone played below the average, a poor performance across the board, they had one shot on target. They gave their opponent a gift for a goal, and Mexico still could not beat the United States. That's a good feeling, no? That's 5 games. Mexico should have been up 2-0 late, and instead, they have to settle for 1-1. So in the mind games afterwards, this was a win for the U.S., even though they just got a tie. but it's much better than the alternative. I mean, that was an incredible hit by Charlie Rodriguez, and then it opened up the door. The U.S. went the other way. I know a lot of people don't like Jesus Ferreira. He's a young player. I think we have to support him. He went from number 10. He scored the goal as a number 9. It was a nice tap in. And people say he has too many chances. Well, a lot of people have chances. But let me tell you something about the United States. They're not scoring goals anywhere. They didn't score goals in the World Cup. They didn't score goals in the World Cup qualifiers. They haven't scored goals since, other than Grenada. Who's scoring the goals? Ricardo Pepi's gotten himself going. But remember, Ricardo Pepi didn't score a goal for about a year. Who's scoring the goals? Is it Josh Sargent or Haji Wright? For the national team. No one's scoring goals. It's a problem. So let's not focus on Jesus Ferreira, because he scored a goal in a big spot. Goals change everything for these guys. Jesus Ferreira did it. And I think we need to support him because everyone was ready to pounce on Aaron Long. But when Jesus Ferreira scored, everyone was like, oh, no, I'm just based on Twitter. Oh, he shouldn't have been out. Why are we like this? It tied Mexico. That's our guy. It's our guy. Good for him. So, a nice ball by Jordan Morris. I thought Jordan Morris was one of the bright spots. Solid. Getting forward. I want to see him on some of the national teams. Most of these MLS players, I would say no. I want to see him. But I think you have, when you get together in an important game in the summer, I think you have 5, if not 6 guys from this group, not including Serginho Dest, because he's an outlier. He was going to be there anyway. But 5 or 6 guys from this group that would probably be on there. Probably Walker Zimmerman. Kellen Acosta. Didn't have a good game, but still features in there. Jesus Ferreira. Maybe Brandon Vasquez. Maybe Cade Cowell. Maybe that's about it. But it's a nice group. We should be proud our MLS players did a nice job in an ugly game. The goal changed everything. This was awful. I was ready to rip up the paper. I didn't want to talk about it, but they got the result. The Soccer OG. Check out the Soccer OG here on YouTube under my name, Max Bretos. Check out the Soccer OG podcast where all podcasts are available. I shoot it straight. I really shoot it straight. I got no agenda here. I got none. I'm just telling you how I see it, which I think I talk to coaches, I talk to agents, I talk to scouts, I talk to players. So I feel like I have a pretty good grasp of it. Not a perfect one by any means. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you over the weekend. We'll have a video out of the weekend.